The Skywalker saga may be done in the movies, but Marvel's Star Wars comics are still unveiling new adventures and secrets from that galaxy far, far away. Today, we are joined by the esteemed comic book writer Greg Pak. He's incredibly loved for his game-changing run on Planet Hulk that served as inspiration for the movie Thor Ragnarok. But today, we're here to grill him on the shocking twist in his Darth Vader comic series. Greg, are you ready to be grilled?
I am. Grill away. Thanks, and thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, of course, of course. So I was personally, all of Star Wars fandom really was blown away by the twist at the end of Darth Vader #1, where Vader encountered what appeared to be Padme Amidala alive and well. Obviously, now we know that the woman in question is not Padme, but still, what was it like leaving all of Star Wars fandom on a cliffhanger like that?
It was pretty awesome, you know. It's kind of fun. Cliffhangers are a funny thing because that is the business of comics. Comics is serial storytelling. You want to end with that, big crazy splash page that leaves people wondering. But they're honestly really hard to actually manage, and just because of the way comics are solicited and marketed. It's very hard to have a secret at the end of issue 1 that is actually a secret by the time the book comes out. And I think we actually managed it.
So we know that the character who appeared to be Padme is actually Sabe. But could you let us know how you're using the presence of this woman who looks like Anakin's dead wife to dig into the character of Darth Vader?
Yeah, so if you remember from the prequels, Padme had a number of handmaids who were trained to, there were bodyguards and also doubles. Our story takes place after Empire Strikes Back, after Vader has been rejected by Luke, after he sort of reached out to Luke and was like, together we can rule the galaxy, and Luke's like, nah. And we tend to think of that as, we tend to think about Luke's reaction because that's one of the most famous reactions in all of cinema, that it's impossible. But it's just as harrowing for Vader. If you think about this from Vader's point of view, particularly after having, sort of absorbed all of the prequel stuff, Vader has lost every family member, everybody who's close to him. He's lost in a terrible way. He spoiler alert. He left his mother, who was enslaved on Tatooine, left her behind. He was, years later when he finally, when he and Padme finally, fell in love, were married, and then he has, a moment with Padme on Mustafar where he makes the same kind of speech to her that he makes to Luke, and she also rejects him. So this thing with Luke, it's like all of this horrible trauma he's been through during the course of his life comes back. And so what better way to twist the knife than to bring back somebody who looks exactly and sounds exactly like Padme would have looked and sounded if she were still alive.
After this current arc wraps, I heard you mention that the next arc will somehow tie into episode 9. And obviously that movie had a lot to do with the Emperor, so my mind is reeling with the possibilities. But what can you say about what to expect from that arc?
Well, I can't say too much. I can say that it will. It's part of this. We've got a grand design for Vader's big storyline here between Empire and Return of the Jedi, and honestly, for me, this is the most interesting point in Vader's whole arc because these movies are all about Vader, right? These first 6 movies, and there's a huge jump between Empire and Return. There's just this incredible room for an emotional story for Vader. So this next arc continues what we've built in the first arc, and it will feed into what comes next. Like I say, it's going to be a huge, hopefully deeply disturbing and entertaining and satisfying epic by the time it's all done. And we got permission and the green light to do some stuff I never imagined we'd be able to do. So and if you're interested in Star Wars lore, you do not want to miss this.
I'm definitely interested. Well, So, episode 9 is, of course, the end of the Skywalker saga, a story that began with Anakin Skywalker. So when you watch episode 9, what does that movie say to you about the character of Darth Vader?
That's a great question. I hadn't actually thought about it in that specific kind of way, I think Vader's really interesting because I love Vader. It's a total thrill to be able to write this book. And I've been with these characters since I was 8 years old. I saw the first Star Wars movie when I was 7 or 8. So this stuff has been under my skin as long as just about any kind of story or entertainment. One thing that I've been thinking about recently is this whole notion of Vader as the chosen one, right? Because that's, those words don't come up in the original trilogy, but they're repeated many times in the prequels. With this little kid, sort of. What a head trip to lay on a little kid to say that, oh my God, you're the chosen one. You're destined to bring balance to the Force. And then to have your best friend scream that at you after he's cut off 3 of your limbs and you're catching on fire on the lava bank on Mustafar. You hear it then too. So it kind of bookends that whole chunk of his story. But there's so many stories about chosen ones, and there's part of me that doesn't like those kind of stories, that rejects those stories because I'm a big believer in the idea that no one is born the chosen one, that we all have potential and we all make our own. We choose our own destiny. We make our own way through the world, and there's no one person who's going to save us all, and no one of us can do it all on our own, and there's no destiny that picks one person or one bloodline, right? That's that's sort of in my gut, and yet these movies they talk about the chosen one all the time. But I think Vader's really interesting because they call him the chosen one, but is he? You know what I mean? It's you can argue. This is getting into just Star Wars nerdy stuff. You can argue that yes, he does bring balance to the Force in the end because, spoiler alert, he throws the Emperor into the big pit at the end of Return of the Jedi. But his own life is not really about. I don't know. I think it's arguable that Vader's story is also in a way, it's unwrapping or a critique of the whole chosen one narrative.
Thank you so much for chatting about your Darth Vader comic with us, Greg.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. And for those of you at home, the next issue of Darth Vader is due out July 29th. Until then, may the Force be with you.